It's Monday!
Happy Monday, everybody! Two Chaps, many cultures, coming live to you from our basements, from our libraries, from a professional recording studio. You will not know. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Identity is maybe a figment of your imagination, or it's all made up, or it is given to you by somebody else and you like it or you don't like it. I don't know. What is your identity, Brett?
Is it all an illusion? Good morning, everybody. It is 8:33. Do you know where your children are? That was a question.
It is 9:33 where I am.
You said one of your children is at work, which you said was one of your wins last week. One less coffee to make in the morning. Although is Dad getting up and making coffee for the little cherub as she walks out the door? No, not at 5 a.m.
She's well educated and knows how to use the kitchen equipment.
Absolutely. Welcome, everybody. Yes, this is another week of Two Chaps, Many Cultures, where too much culture is never, ever, ever enough. Ever enough. And that's what we enjoy talking about. And this week we have a theme. And my good friend Christian has just kind of given a little bit of a hint. Yes, it is a theme about identity. Identity, who we are perceived to be, what do we project to the world? What do we actually have behind the facade of when we go through our day-to-day lives? And possibly how much do we need to share? Do we want to share? How much do we want to keep open to the public? And, I was thinking this morning about different times in my life when I've thought about identity. I seem to find the one thing I love about my co-conspirator, Mr. Christian, sitting here next to me, is that whenever you're with a group of people and you find somebody who is fascinating, he does a wonderful job of questioning and digging in and getting them to share things about themselves, in whatever way they want to. And I think that's an amazing skill to be able to do, because
are you saying that I'm inquisitive?
I think inquisitive, but curious. That's the important part, right? We talk about the curiosity, having curiosity about other people, and I just think it's a skill or something that I practice. And it's one thing that I miss about traveling at the moment is that you can you watch people, you watch the world around you, especially in airports. That's a great place to watch the human experience, but you can kind of see yourself telling stories. A number of years ago, my wife and I were on a date night, I think, downtown in Chicago, and we were coming back on the train. It was kind of, late at night. There were a lot of people on the train. There was this older gentleman who I may have made the judgment that he was homeless. He was actually quite, it was actually winter, so it was very cold, and he was holding his hand, and he was Polish. He was muttering in Polish, so he was muttering and talking to himself. He looked like he was in pain. And, when you sit and you watch people like this in your everyday experience, you can say to yourself, there by the grace of God go I, right? There is only the difference between one small decision and one small circumstance to have us switch places in those times. But I found, because of the Polish connection, because obviously Marta is Polish, and I'm thinking to myself that in this case, I was starting to tell myself a narrative about where this guy came from. I imagined in his young life, because he was an elderly gentleman, but in his young life, having visited Poland and knowing kind of the settings that can happen there, just imagining him, at one time having a loving parents, a loving mother that cradled him right as a baby, and just kind of, I remember just making this story up in my mind along the way. But it is one of those things that I do. I make up a story about other people, and we all do that with everybody we come across, but never really ask the questions like you do such a great job of, Christian.
Well, and the storytelling, or the stories that we tell ourselves, are those stories that we come up with in our mental movie theater. They sometimes are entertaining to ourselves, and oftentimes they can be quite misleading. I catch myself. I actually, I wonder how many of you do this too. So if you have a similar experience, feel free to share, or if you're not embarrassed to share, go ahead and do so. Um, I catch myself that I make up these stories about things that I see. It may not just be people. It could be the neighbor's dog barking behind a crease in the fence, and then I think about the dog and why would the dog be so aggressive. So we make up these narratives to explain to ourselves the experience of life, and sometimes they work for us, they serve us, sometimes they don't serve us. We see this playing out right now in the world, especially here in North America. How many different narratives are being offered to us on a daily basis about what the best course of action in the current situation would be, and what's really going on, and how people think they know better what's going on. It's all of these are, in essence, narratives that either serve a certain purpose or they are doing a disservice to us. So when it comes to identity, there were different stories that I told myself, right? So as growing up as a kid in small town southern Germany, I had a different narrative than I have now. And the way I look at myself is different now. And being able to show my identity the way I want it to be seen, or the way I feel myself, I recognize more and more has become a privilege of mine, because I have a pigmentation that allows me to do that. I've made a lot of interactions in the last couple of months with people of color who feel inhibited or reluctant to always reveal their true identity for fear or concern of negative repercussions. And that is an experience I don't have, because I have that privilege, right? And I'm aware of it, working towards becoming more aware of it, but who I am as a person and how I let my world know about it is my experience, and it's a very unique one. So I don't know where we're going with this topic. Are we real in our identity, or is it all made up, or is it a mixture of the two? What do you think, Brett?
Yeah, no, well, that example is powerful, because it's like anybody that we engage with that are from a different identity that we want to feel some allyship with, right? We're comfortable in trying to tell ourselves that we're a great ally, and we never do enough to do that. But when we aren't a part of that community or that identity, we don't share that identity. It was, and I forget where it was the other day, but someone said it's easy for us to take that veil of identity off if we don't have it. You know, we might want to be an ally and think, okay, we want to understand, and we want to support, and we want to, you know, be with LGBTQ community, people of color, different socioeconomic. We want to be an ally. We want to support them. It's easier for us when we don't have that identity, we have the privilege of taking that off, and a lot of people do, right? A lot of people, that's our privilege to do that. So but when you have that identity, you can't take that off. You know, you don't. That is what it is, especially if it's a physical expression. You know, so it's I'm not sure. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge Christina here. He says she guesses it's a mixture of the two, and I tend to agree with her, because here, I don't know if you had a similar experience, Brett, but for me, as I changed locations or even continents, I moved from Europe to North America, I had the privilege of changing my narrative, because literally nobody in my new environment knew about any of my baggage or my identity back in the old world or my old home. So I got the chance of kind of reinventing myself, so to say. I got the opportunity to create a new identity, if you will. I'm not gonna be too crass about that. I'm not a different human being than I was before I left Europe, but I'm in a different industry now. I do a different work. I speak a different language in my day to day. I eat differently. My daily routines are different. The people that I interact with are not the same. So obviously, to a certain degree, that affects who I am. And I don't know who said it, and I like this idea that you become the person. You're basically the mixture of the five people you hang out with most. That's the person you become. And the people I hang out here in my current location are different than the ones that I had when I was still living in Europe. So I had the privilege of changing the identity. How many of us have that opportunity?
Right.
There's a lot of people in my immediate environment that never had that opportunity. So again, privilege right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I operate in as an Australian operating in the US. There's a perception that pretty much every time I open my mouth, there's somebody who says, "Oh, I love your accent." Right? This is something unique to my privilege that I tell people that are Australian, and British people too. There's this kind of when we open our mouth, there's this sense of they think we come from this exotic place, and for me, in my case, all the dangerous animals and the things that come along with that experience. But that's again, I have been guilty. I don't know whether I should feel guilty, but I do leverage that privilege. That's something I have, that I actually sometimes I'll turn a little bit more of an Aussie accent to I guess encourage a certain reaction. So I like the example when you said about perceiving, you hear a dog barking, right? There's a lot of that, the perception of you can judge it in two either way. The dog barking because somebody's trying to break into a house next door, or somebody's climbing the fence, and like that could be the fear, and say, my God, I can't go outside because the dog's barking. Right. Or the dog's barking because it's happy. It's happy, and it's somebody's out there playing with it, and it's so we have those choices. But that's a powerful choice, and we have to make, as humans, we have to make that choice absolutely in a split second, and we do that in a split second. It is what we do as humans: the fear, freeze, or flight.
I have this conversation with virtually every coaching client that I've had over the years. That you have a choice. Your narrative is made up to a certain degree anyway, so you have a choice whether you want to make it up to be something negative, like dogs barking because there's an intruder or there's danger, imminent danger, or dog barking because dog's happy. So you have a choice what you want to make it mean. Our minds are meaning-making machines. So what meaning do you want to give it? And I think that's what we have as humans that other species don't have, that we can actually create meaning and identity the way it serves us. I want to bring up a comment that I'm afraid is going to cover our faces, but it doesn't really matter. Here, my honey is here and says, born and raised in Germany, I feel I carry a different baggage in quotation marks, and I don't allow it to identify me. For me, it's different being Caucasian in the US, and I'm very aware of what I appear to the outside world, the people that don't know me. I think that's why it's important for me to have conversations with people that are not like me and at least attempt to relate. I love that, and that's why I love you, honey. That's why we're married, because we are thinking along the same lines here. Having a conversation with people that are unlike us is allowing us to break the preconceived notions of what our identities should be. We live and I may have shared this on this program before. My wife and my family and I, we live in Atlanta. We live in a predominantly African-American neighborhood, and I am perceived as a white male of a certain age because that's what I appear to be to the people that have not had a conversation with me. Once they've sat down with me or talked with me and recognized who I am and I recognize who they are, the conversation changes quickly, because the identity, the perception of my identity that people in my neighborhood have of me changes immediately, because I'm not seen as a white American male. I'm seen as a European immigrant, also white male. However, they see me as a different person than they did before. So that's why these conversations are so important. It's better than just assuming, right? The assumption of a certain identity is often very misleading. I don't know who said it first. Assumptions are the quicksand of architecture. It will your building will sink into the ground because it's not solid. It's not a solid foundation.
Absolutely.
What does Patricia say here?
Our good friend Patricia, a privileged woman of color who moved from Europe to the Caribbean, to the USA, to South America, and back to the USA, and this is the beauty about this. This is why I'm fascinated, and I tell people I'm kind of like the other way. I'm drawn towards people that don't look like me because I can see a possibility of a very, very rich narrative coming from that person. I want to talk. This is Patricia's a classic example. She's a mentor of mine and somebody I've known for a lot of years and has taught me so much. And it is that, but she's exactly the type of person, speaking multiple languages, this wonderful arc of movement and journeying around the world and experience, right? That's the people I want to learn from. Now, there may be somebody in that looks like me that has the same experience, but quite sometimes I admit I often will walk past a person that looks like me because I just assume that they're boring like me, right? They don't have this wonderful narrative to be able to share with me. So this is why I've got to kind of fight against that sometimes and not dismiss the people that perhaps from my point of view don't look as interesting or as fascinating as somebody like Patricia, who's got
and yet there's even amongst those that we may perceive as very similar, there's often very interesting identities right there. And I agree with you. It's easy to dismiss the likeness because we think, oh, well, I've had this experience already. I don't need to engage more. And often there's some hidden gems right there. What did you say? Oh, okay. Well, and I think I know what she's trying to refer to here, or what she is referring to. In fact, is that when the conversation happens, the facade comes down to a certain degree because I allow it to. Now, how often have you had conversations with others where the facade remained and where there was no intention to let each other see the true self? And that does happen too, right? And it's not always easy to break that down. I've had both experiences where I had conversations with people that were not willing to give out their real identity for whatever reason. That I'm not judging it, I'm just reporting it. And we'll have some of these discussions over the course of this week. We have a great round of guests lined up for you. We have a magnificent lineup. So tomorrow we'll be joined by Margaret, and you know a little bit more about Margaret just in one soundbite. Who's Margaret?
Yeah, so you can tell a little bit by the name, Margaret Ohio Novak, and again, no, I don't want to give too much away.
Okay,
I don't want to give too much away. I think all of our guests this week were not chosen really. They were kind of like the universe brought them to us, I guess. We have and we do have a wonderful network of people and that we love and know in this. And some of them the Christian might know, some of them that I might know, but I think that we don't want to be too comfortable in just getting the people that we know, right? And Margaret, I don't know that well. We've only just kind of met each other recently through some common connections in Europe, and she lives in Europe. But that's kind of where I wanted to. The part of the beauty of this show is to try and come up with people that we don't know and have the discovery come out through the process of when we're talking to it. So it kind of, and so, but I do know certain specific things about Margaret, which are fascinating, and that's why I wanted to talk to her. And just like every guest that we're going to have this week, so very excited. I mean, this is great. We got all these people who want to come and talk to us, because
that's lovely.
That's the intention. It's going to get boring if it's just sitting with us guys.
And if you haven't noticed, the faces that were just pulled up, none of them are middle-aged white men. So we got to counter this thing here.
You're right. Yeah. That's right. We got to get a good balance, right? And you can see that what we're trying to do here is maybe each week. No, it probably won't happen each week. This is jazz, of course, and it may change. But it is trying to think of something, a theme that we might touch on, a general theme, a general arc of what we might touch on every week. And we'd encourage you to tell us what kind of things you want us to talk about. Is there a theme you would like us to? Would you like to come on and talk about something and relate your stories? So that's important because, again, this, as I said, this is not our table. It is your table. We are just the caretakers, and we want you to come and add your comments and questions and everything, because it doesn't work without you guys. So, yeah. All right, great.
Well, this is Monday, and I look forward to the rest of the week. Brett, I wish all of you, first of all, my co-conspirator, Brett, and all of you watching, a very productive Monday, a very productive rest of the week. We will see you again, same place, same time tomorrow. Let's rock it.
Okay. See you guys. Bye.